Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. So we were kind of talking about what we should talk about, and Moth was just like, "Hey, do you have any ideas?" Um, so I thought for a moment, and then my idea was, what if corporations were not allowed to make all the money? Like, what if they had to pay their workers more? What if they couldn't boast all these profits that they had to invest that back into society or back into causes that help people in need? And just that, you couldn't have three jets and two yachts and a mansion and three other homes.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts? You want to start us off, Moth?
Yeah, I personally I think it's ridiculous to have just like a wasteful amount of wealth to where you're just literally like, what can I spend it on and just like throwing it out. Um, but I get it's like a mixed topic because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I won't go too far into that yet, but um I think if it would have been enacted like maybe say like in the 50s or 60s starting then that they had regulations where employees had to be paid fair wages, which it was more fair back then. It's gotten completely out of hand.
Exactly. It's stagnated and gotten so
It,
far behind.
yeah. Mhm. Um so I think if it would have been
Halima
enacted
decided to join us
back
in the
then,
simulation.
it would have improved the US for starters. I don't know. I'm sure it would improve anywhere, but like
Oh,
it
absolutely.
probably would stimulate the economy because people would not be just like fighting for their lives. Maybe they could actually enjoy their lives. Just a thought, but um it kind of seems the standard now that employees have to work themselves to death and like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's any way to live when there's like billionaires, trillionaires that are completely profiting off of everyone's work.
Oh, absolutely. And
So
they
that's some of my
started
thoughts.
having a minimum wage so that people wouldn't be like underpaid, undervalued for their work. But the thing is, having a minimum wage sets a baseline where everybody
Mhm.
can just say, here's how much you get. And it doesn't
Like I'm
matter
paying you
if
enough.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if that's a living wage or not. That is what the government says the minimum is.
Mhm.
And it just, there, that also makes it so there's no competition at all.
Mhm.
Like, if McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and KFC are all paying the same minimum wage, it doesn't matter where you go to work. You just need a job
Mhm.
to pay your bills. If that's all you're doing. And in terms of corporations, I don't know if you know this because it's an older book slash documentary, but there was one that was literally called The Corporation. This is from 2003, and I've seen the documentary, and I don't have it anymore, but I used to own the book. And there was a point where, like, you know how when you go into the store, right, and you look at Pepsi and you look at
Recent
Lay's
Olive is
and you
here
look
to
at
kiss
these
snowy
different
butt cheeks.
brand names of stuff, how most of the things you see are all under like one parent company, right? So you have one parent
Mhm.
company, and then you have like hundreds of brands under them. It used to be that corporations couldn't amass that many companies underneath them. They got to a point where they were so big, the government forced them to break down because they couldn't have all of that coming into the one, like one kind of parent company, that they had to break things up, and corporations couldn't get that big and they couldn't control that much because it really creates monopolies where there is no competition.
Mm. That's messed up. So like a way for them to retain all the money still by breaking up into smaller companies or
Well, no, not that they could, just that they wouldn't be able to get like continue to buy all these different companies, and they would
Oh,
be
okay.
forced, yeah, so they couldn't grow. And there is, like, of course, right, with political lobbying and everything, laws get changed. But I know even back when the internet was just, a vast wild west, if you will, um, with Microsoft trying to get its Internet Explorer as the browser that everybody used, and just packing it in with Windows and trying to, like, bury competitors like Netscape. They got into a lot of legal trouble for that as well. But you don't see that happening anymore these days.
Hmm.
So what's
Um,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Good.
No, you.
I was just going to say, I know I've been on the side of, wishing to be paid more because, and it's not just wanting to be paid more and not doing any work. It's like people, busting their asses and getting
Mm-hmm.
underpaid and doing things outside their job description, which, like, I worked a job and it was for the government actually. And um I was at, I would say, like, an entry level job, but they were having me do things that I knew I typically would need a degree for, but they weren't paying me
Mm-hmm.
for it. They just,
Because you didn't have that.
yeah, they figured out
Mm-hmm.
that I could do it, and so they had me do it, and I was still making barely, like, minimum wage.
Mm.
And eventually, even though I loved the job, I ended up quitting, and it was very dramatic and stuff, but it was just,
Mm.
you give everything to a job, you expect to be paid, like, adequately for that.
Yeah.
So,
And they rely on people who will do more for less. Like,
mhm,
anything they can do to save, you know, the nickels. It adds up and adds up and adds up, and it just profits, like, the bottom line gets padded. Um, I know that some of the highest paid CEOs of companies have some of the workers that are some of the lowest paid and suffering. And in the US, I
mhm,
know a lot of, like, I've read online, like, outcry so many times about how people employed at Walmart are on food stamps as well,
mhm,
because they're not paid enough, they don't get enough hours. And other loopholes that companies like to do is not hiring full time. That means they don't have to worry
mm,
about benefits,
yep,
doing the part-time thing. And I mean, really, you can't survive on a full-time,
mhm,
job that pays minimum wage, or even a few dollars more than minimum wage, because, like, living wages and minimum wages are vastly different. I
mhm,
think the living wage from the area for the area that I live in is roughly $5 or $6 more than the minimum wage is. I don't know if you
mhm.
have a similar thing where you are.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah,
Yeah.
that would make total sense to me, and I see, like, actually now it has became kind of competitive with, like, fast food industries because what happened was the youngest generation coming up, I think that they understand that they deserve more than minimum wage.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so they're just flat out not working. I mean, to an extent, people do have to work, but if they don't have
Mm-hmm.
to work, they're not working. And so you'll see signs posted all over fast food places that say, like, we'll pay you like $18 an hour, we'll pay you
Yeah.
$20 an hour. And I'm like, man, that's more than I was making at my government job. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's pretty crazy. But that's what
And I,
happens when you don't have employee retention. So
right?
everyone
Yeah,
knows.
exactly. And I know some of the states, not all of them, but I know some of them they've actually passed laws where fast food workers get $20 an hour.
Mm,
I don't know off the top of my head what the states are, but I know I've read that.
I would
I
say
think
California.
California. Yeah, I was
Yep.
gonna say I think California's one of them, but yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know where else. And the thing is, too, with those kind of jobs, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially because they haven't worked one of those jobs, is they'll sit there and, when 10 years ago when they were trying to fight for
Static threat
$15
has
an hour
logged
for
into the
fast food,
mainframe.
and then now when they're, it's the $20 thing, these people are saying, oh, you're just flipping burgers, you want that much money just to make a burger. And you know what, you get to go and sit in a nice cushy air conditioned office
Mhm.
where you type away on your computer and you do whatever. And sure, it's, I'm not trying to devalue that. I know that kind of stuff, office work, can be stressful. I
Mhm.
know there's deadline, there's all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah. There's all kinds of
unless,
different stress though. Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, unless you're actually there and you've actually worked that job, and you know how stressful it is when you've got a drive-through full of cars that is backed out onto the street and going down the street, and a crush of customers coming in, plus all these delivery apps going
Mhm.
off, like it's ludicrous to think that somebody managing all of that deserves like less than in terms of
Mhm.
wage. And these are the people that are more apt to have physical problems later on because of the abuse you put your body through working these kind of jobs. And even retail, right, with the stocking and everything, it's constant
Mhm.
repetitive movement. It's on your feet for long hours. Apparently it looks unprofessional to sit at a cash register to
Oh, I
scan
hate
items
that.
in. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to talk or have some input regarding the wages that people are paid for these kind of unskilled, quote unquote, unskilled labor, which takes a hell of a lot of skill to actually
Mhm.
be effective in, or corporate greed?
Mm. I'd say like one of the biggest things people have to deal with is like the attitude of the customer, because there's
Mm-hmm.
a huge amount of customers out there that kind of see these people and I hate to say it, but it's true. They see them as like servants.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
so I'm not saying everyone, but I've met plenty of people and I've worked in those positions and ran into plenty of people that treated me
Mm-hmm.
like I was there to be at their beck and whim. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is not what I'm here for. But so I think it takes a lot of like social skill to be able to deal with those customers without like losing
Mm-hmm.
your shit essentially.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, even so, like some of them are still going to make you lose your shit even if you don't lose your shit at the customer. I mean, there's a saying that goes, if
Mhm.
you haven't cried or screamed in a walk-in, then you haven't worked in a kitchen.
Mhm.
And there's a
Mhm.
reason for that.
Oh yeah, the walk-in's so great.
Yeah. And then sometimes you're in this kitchen working and you're so hot, you walk into it and you just see the
Yeah.
steam coming off of you.
Yes, that's another thing for sure. Um, so going back to kind of like the butterfly effect of it, I think like
Mm-hmm.
if those standards had been implemented, like I could see our country, well, I say our country, but like the United States because that's what I have experience with. I could see it being a way better place to live in. I don't
Yeah.
currently I'm a little bit worried, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I understand.
Um, but like how you say the bigger corporations kind of like funding different like philanthropy
Mm-hmm.
ventures, like helping the homeless maybe, or like trying to solve the homeless crisis more so, because I think it's something that needs solved and not something that just
Mm-hmm.
needs money thrown at it.
No.
Um, but yeah, that would be one place to look for people willing to work these jobs that a lot of people don't want to work right now. But I mean, it's not like the homeless should have to work these terrible jobs either. But
No, but yeah, the thing, and I think we could do like a whole topic on the homeless situation, and
mhm,
the butterfly effect of that, and how we could change that. I think that was, so I had some stuff to say, but I'm thinking maybe I should just wait and we should do a topic
like put it
on
with that
that.
topic. Mhm,
Yeah, what do you
sounds
think?
good to me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because yeah, that's another thing that's
That's a big topic
kind
for
of
sure.
that and that I like hold because I
Mhm.
try to help where I can. And the thing
Mhm.
is, a lot of them are looked down on, right? But people don't
Yeah.
until you are in that position where you are like a lost paycheck or two away from being homeless yourself. You
Mhm.
don't really understand. But yes, so I'm going to stop because I will get too far into that.
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into that topic
Um,
for sure.
Now, regarding though the profits and the corporations and the lobbying, like the political lobbying, because I know right now there's a lot of changes, and it's almost like political collusion because our premier is making all these changes, trying to privatize our health care. Our so here you go to specific stores to buy your alcohol. And a few years ago, convenience, not, no, sorry, not convenience stores, grocery stores were able to sell beer and wine, but not hard alcohol. And now he's trying to push it all out into convenience stores and more grocery stores and stuff. And the one thing is the Liquor Control Board, which is the government one that oversees the alcohol, they put some something like $2.5 billion into our economy, and stuff like that is what pays for our health care. And with that kind of stuff happening, there's going to be less going um, into like to the government. There's going to be less money going in for all these services and stuff that they back, and the people who profit from that are the CEOs and the corporations that are owning the businesses that this alcohol is now going to be able to be sold into. And he's done a lot of dirty dealings like this, like trying to privatize our health care. And that's another thing I know in the States because it's already like that. It is,
Mhm.
it's a money
It's awful.
making thing. It's not, yeah.
Mhm.
And that's where they're trying to direct this province like a pay to win system, basically, if you will. Because if you have the money, you can skip the wait list. But if you don't, then you're just on the list and you wait. Um,
Mhm.
but one thing I don't understand is why, um, and it's probably not the majority. Like I'm not in the U.S. Obviously, I see stuff. Um, so there's obviously some skew, some bias, but a lot of people seem against there being like a universal health care
Bonnie has
in the
glitched into
United
the
States, and I'm
matrix.
not sure why that is.
Um, I honestly couldn't tell you. Like, I don't understand it either. I would say
Yeah.
probably the people that don't want it to change are on the honestly, some of it's almost like
Tokra is too late.
herd mentality type thing.
Mm-hmm.
They hear say like some leaders say this is bad and then it trickles down and they just assume that's
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know if universal healthcare has really been brought up by either side, but like to the extent that like say like they have it in the UK or maybe in Canada, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely need help with healthcare though, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I've been on several different plans over the years, and it seems like you have to pay to have it, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
pay to use it to a certain point. And by the time you get to the point where you've reached your deductible, um, it's the end of the year, it resets again. And, like
Oh,
they
jeez.
never actually pay that much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, universal healthcare would be amazing in my opinion, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one person. I know everyone has different opinions about
Yeah.
that. But if anyone wants to voice their opinions,
Here, I have something to say.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go.
So I'll just tell you one thing. Like we live in Canada, and I remember one time I was sitting in a hospital, and it was right close to the sidewalk, and I looked over and I saw some father walking with his son on a bicycle, and he wiped out, crashed to the ground, skinned his knee, skinned his elbow, and they got up and
Oh
they
no.
walked right into the hospital. 10 minutes later, that little kid was walking out with a lollipop and a band-aid on his elbow and his knee.
Aw,
Yeah, totally
that's
free,
nice.
no problems.
Yeah, that would not happen to the US. Be like
Oh,
$1,000 for these band-aids.
Yeah,
right.
no $20,000 triage activation fee.
Mhm. Um,
Iron
I
Wolf.
think Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Your
going to the
megaphone.
doctor's next week, and I'm only going to pay like $10.
I'm happy for
Yeah,
you,
see, that's
but I'm very
amazing.
jealous.
And then it's deductibles from work as well. So yeah.
Mm.
Nice.
Nice.
See, yes, that's why I would love to have that. Um, I've read about it a bit, but I don't see it happening anytime soon for any United States citizens, unfortunately.
I
Um,
know about 10 years ago, and I didn't know what was happening at the time. Like, I thought I was having a heart attack or something. I went to the hospital after work, and it
mhm.
turns out I had a pulmonary embolism. So that's
Oh
something
my
that
gosh.
could, like, quite easily kill you.
Mhm.
But instead, I got admitted. I got all the tests, and they put me on
Mhm.
blood thinners. Now I don't have anything, but
Big John is now part
the
of our
doctor
virtual
that
mischief.
saw me in the hospital, when he prescribed them, he brought me because, like, that our healthcare doesn't include prescriptions, it doesn't include dental, it doesn't include mental health either. It's just
Hmm.
like healthcare. But he brought me this big bag with all of the samples of Eliquis, which was the blood thinner he had in his office, and
Aw.
those, like, lasted me months. And I didn't even know him. Like, he was the doctor that was
Mhm.
on call on Emerge that night, so it's not like it was my doctor or anything. And just that kind of stuff can be such a great help. Like, I didn't have to pay anything for the hospital visit,
Mhm.
anything like that, for the tests, the care, but I would have had to pay for the prescriptions, and it was like $100 a month. So that
Mhm.
definitely saved me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that, I mean, it's a definitely a thing for my family, and I think most families, like, there we will have, like, something that could be an emergency, like someone having something going on. Like, for instance, I myself, um, I'll weirdly have seizures sometimes when I, like, have a fever.
Oh, jeez.
It's just, like, called fever-induced seizures, I guess. There's probably something more
Mm-hmm.
to it, but again, can't afford to figure it out. Um, so we come down to the question of, is this, like, me passing out multiple times, laying on the floor, is this serious enough to call an ambulance? Because ambulances cost, like, thousands of
Mm-hmm.
dollars. So I guarantee, like, this exact situation has caused people to just die before because they didn't call. They thought they would be okay. Um, it's pretty intense. Um, but yeah, like, when we have called the ambulance, we ended up having to really cut back our funds, like, just basically live paycheck to paycheck just to pay off that bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, um,
So now
healthcare is not that
imagine
great.
if if a good percentage of the profits of the revenue that's generated by
Mhm.
these corporations had to go back into healthcare for the citizens of the country that they reside in. Like, imagine if that
Mhm.
stuff, like, if they were actually taxed appropriately, so that that money was going back into the betterment of the country, regardless of if it's in Canada, the US, the
Mhm.
Netherlands, anywhere like that. They've got money coming in, so that they can then, have that health care, so that schools even could be better funded, so that
Mhm.
education could greatly improve, so that teacher to student ratios didn't have to be so, like, I remember, even, like, being a little kid, sometimes having 30 people in class, and how can one teacher effectively teach 30 students, especially when
Mhm.
people have different ways of learning,
Yeah.
different potential, different understanding. Some need more help, some need less. Like, you
Mhm.
can't effectively do that. You have to just do the best you can and hope. But, like, what if some of this revenue, instead of having people having yachts and mansions, and, you get one yacht, you don't need five. It's okay. You'll
Mhm.
live. But this was going back
You'll
into like, education, going into healthcare,
Mhm.
going in just to make sure that people's basic needs are met, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, none of us asked to be here. We did not have any say in the matter. That decision was not made by us, but we're here and we have to, do the best we can. And if some of those basic needs were just something that did not have to take up room in your head because you knew, if I chipped a tooth, or if I got a cavity, or, if I got in an accident and half of my teeth were smashed out of my face, I could go get that fixed, and I
Mhm.
would not have the embarrassment of worrying about people seeing my mouth. I would not have, the expense of having to figure out how I can pay for this and it needs
Mhm.
fixing. And the same with any medical condition. Like, that if you have cancer, you don't have to worry that you can't afford chemotherapy or radiation or whatever you need. That if you have to have an operation, and in Canada, yes, some of this stuff we don't have to worry about. But there are other aspects that we do. And I know in the States you have to worry about it all. So, like, what if you could just
Mm.
go get treatment and you didn't have to worry about losing your home because you got sick, which is not something, unless
Mhm.
you're smoking like crazy, and but something that's not. And even commercials when I was a kid, I remember there's this old guy going on about how his wife never smoked, but he smoked, and then she got cancer, and it's all his fault, kind of thing.
Mm.
It's like, but what if you never had to worry about that stuff? What if you could just
Mhm.
go get it treated, and it was just one less thing on your plate? Because these people and these corporations that have everything and make so much and just want more and more and more, they have to pay their fair share, and then everybody is better because of it.
Mhm. Yeah, like
And just,
something you said earlier about paying it going into the schools, like paying teachers
mm-hmm.
better because
Yes,
they deserve to be paid way more than they're
mm-hmm.
getting in the US.
And they deserve to not have to buy stuff for their classrooms out of
Yes,
that
like
meager
that's
paycheck.
ridiculous. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
already not getting paid enough and then you also have to buy supplies for your class. That's
Yeah.
insane. Um, yeah, that definitely would be a good place to start. And um, like one thing that has been good with the school that I have my kids in is they've actually been able to provide last year, and they said again this year, free breakfast and lunch for all the
Oh,
students.
that's awesome.
So if that was like a nationwide thing, that would help so many
Mm-hmm.
kids that are
Oh,
like not getting fed
absolutely.
at home. Yeah, that would be
Because their
amazing.
parents can't afford food.
Yeah, exactly. Or, whatever other issues are going on at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But yeah, definitely money is typically the root of most problems.
absolutely. And that's the thing, is like, people are like, money can't buy happiness. Well, I think people would be happier if they didn't have to worry about
Mhm.
money.
It's always
And
people with money that say that.
exactly. And money buys stability. And that's something
Mhm.
that not everyone has.
Mhm.
Like, some people have to worry about, oh, if I work a job where they're going to send me home early because we're just not getting enough business, or my hours might get cut, how is that going to pay? Or knowing that your bills and your rent have to be paid, so that just
Mhm.
leaves less money for other things, like maybe
Mhm.
your food, or maybe just, having some pleasure in life instead of just having
Mhm.
to go to work and come home and go to work and come home, because that's just not what life should be about, in my opinion. Anyway. Oh, she'll be back in a
Moth
moment.
Muse just dropped in from another
Mhm.
dimension.
Did anyone else want to comment while we're waiting? Oh, there she is. I think they just like to watch us. I tried to get somebody to comment while you were gone.
I could comment again, but
Okay, well, you megaphone yourself.
so just the whole discussion about where the money should go. It's just you look at celebrities and sports athletes. They get all the cash just for playing a
Mm-hmm.
game, playing a kid's game, pretty much. And the teachers are struggling. They're struggling. Just imagine what it would be like if just the schools got that kind of cash flow, and the kids were being
Mhm.
fed and everything was
Mhm.
being paid for, the books, everything, all the best technology, all the best education tools, and it would just be amazing. Just imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to
Yeah,
see it.
Mhm.
absolutely.
Just what that would be like.
Yeah, because like we like people go, and I say we, but I'm like I don't. I'm not included in that we, but people go crazy for sports, and yes, the athletes are paid a lot, but the thing is, if people like us didn't spend money buying tickets, didn't spend money betting, didn't spend money buying the merchandise and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't have all that revenue coming in to go turn around and offer. And I know, some celebrities and athletes and stuff will pay it back. They will donate money. They will put stuff into
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But who, think of all the people, think of the names about some of the people that come to mind when you think of billionaires or millionaires. And I mean legitimate ones, not ones that fake how much money they have.
Mm-hmm.
But, think, so do you see Jeff Bezos going to a country and going to a certain city, and while he's there, dropping a shitload of money on their food bank? No, no, you don't. And I know you guys are going to all roll your eyes, but you know who does that? Taylor Swift fucking does that. She goes somewhere, she
Taylor
has a
Swift
concert
fucking does
somewhere,
it.
and she drops a
Mic
shitload of money
drop.
on the food banks.
Yeah. Like a lot of celebrities tend to do that stuff, and like it shouldn't be on them. I mean, like yes, they have like excess money, but like think about
Mm-hmm.
again the corporations and like their
Yes.
insane treasure trove of trillions
Mm-hmm.
of dollars. Um, I think they've got plenty to spare.
And that's,
Um,
you know what? Oh, sorry, finish your thought, and then
oh
I've
no,
got
you're fine.
something.
That was just like a placeholder.
um, so you have to think too is that they have investors, right, as well. So as well as the people at the top that are making the money, the investors want return on their investment. And so when they want to squeeze more profits out, especially in now where the cost of living is going up, food, everything is getting more expensive. Where do they squeeze some of those profits out of? They squeeze it out of their workers, because one of the first things to go is labor. So you are given less hours to work with, or because it's slow, you have to send people home early, or because it's extremely slow, you have to call people and tell them they're not working that day. So now you have to do less with more. And one of the things that Static had said too was how it's kind of a revolving door. Do you want to just say that for me, just so I get it right with the workers?
But yeah, it is like a revolving door at places, with a low quality work environment, and you're replaceable. And there's another person who's going to be really happy to have
Mm-hmm.
your job, but then, it's going to be temporary, right? And then it's a revolving cycle. It's just going to
Mm-hmm.
keep recurring, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. So people will get fed up and they'll leave, but there's other people that will come at least until they get fed up and they also leave. But because now they're cut, your labor's cut, so now you're doing more with less, and everybody's working
Mm-hmm.
harder, but you're getting it done. So then what do they see? Oh, well, you don't really need those people. They don't care what the reality is. The burnout, the exhaustion, the
Mm-hmm.
frustration, the stress doesn't matter. Um, but sorry, I like totally lost my train of thought. I'm not even smoking.
And then they don't
um,
pay you extra for working twice as
no,
much
oh
either.
yeah, the where okay, so and where else is it passed on to, in terms of profiting more? The customer, the customer gets less for the more money as well. So think one example, and this is something that Static and I have discussed before. So KFC went and made their pieces of chicken smaller. And they have this whole thing on their website where they're trying to make it look like, oh, you're still getting the same amount. We're just cutting the pieces differently, but they're not. The one piece now that they cut, they separate. So before you get this nice piece of chicken, well, now it's two pieces of chicken, like one little like nubby piece, and then another kind of slightly bigger piece. and that count and if like it's probably less in the States, but in Canada you look at some of the prices for fried chicken, and I mean it's KFC, it's Popeyes, it's Mary Brown's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have all of those there. I don't know if you have ones we don't, but
2 out of
like
3 that I know.
2 out of 3, okay.
Yep.
But like you go in and it's like $60, and it's like, oh, here's a 12, maybe 15-piece bucket, a couple sides, a salad, maybe 2 salads, a gravy, and some biscuits. Like we can go and spend like $70 on sushi, and we can eat from it 2, maybe 3 times. Or you get KFC, and that's, enough for a family of 4 to eat once. It's
Mm-hmm.
just insane. But
And
people
it used
pay,
to be so much cheaper.
I know, and people pay the prices, and that's what I don't understand. And even where I work, I'm like, if I didn't get a free meal, I would not eat here. It's ridiculous. Like, I guess, and I don't know if this is true for a lot of people. Um, I look at things in terms of how much I make an hour. Am I willing to work an hour just to eat that food? Well, usually the answer is no, the fuck I'm not. You
Mm-hmm.
know? And we're big, like, we're bargain hunters in terms of like eating out and stuff. So we'll get the mobile apps. We'll go where there's the best deal. We'll use like we have Cineplex here theaters, and they have something called scene points, and you can our scenes tied to our debit card, so we just let the points accumulate, and then we go out and then we'll eat for free using those points. Like stuff
That's
like
smarter. Yeah.
that. But that's the thing, is like shrinkflation, right? That's another thing, because I used the specific example of portions with takeout and fast food getting smaller. But have you ever been in a grocery store where they haven't run out of the original size of the product, but there's space on the shelf, and they have to put out the new, and you look, and like one of the first things I noticed this with, and this was a number of years ago, was Classico spaghetti sauce. And I don't know, you might not have that brand there, but they have a spaghetti sauce and Alfredo sauce, that kind of thing. So I'm in there and I see one jar, and it's like a 500 milliliter jar. Then there's like 4 or 5 of them left, and then all the other jars they're no, they're not 500 milliliters. They're like 400 and some. So just like taking like, and you know what? They might save 10 or 25 cents a jar, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you take that 10 to 25 cents and you multiply it by all the units that are going to be sold on a daily, weekly, monthly, what have you basis, and it adds up. So again, that's another way that on the backs of the customers, they're increasing their profits. And one thing we always used to joke, because a pack of hot dog wieners has always been a 12 pack, and buns would come in an 8 pack, and we'd always be like, what the hell, you get 12, you buy 2 packs of buns, you got too many buns. You buy 1 pack of buns, you got too many wieners. Well, they went and changed that as well, so now you only get 10 wieners. Still too many, but there used to be a dozen packs of hot dog buns. Sometimes you'd see that. Now you're gonna have too many buns, so the right amount of buns. But anyway,
That is a
and
clever
bacon.
way to keep you buying.
Yeah. Bacon is another thing. It used to universally be sold in 500-gram packs. For many, many years, it's been 375 grams. So they've taken 120, and that's actually, ironically enough, that's the exact same weight that came off of those hot dog packages too, because they also used to be 500 grams, and they are now 375 grams. So they're taking that little bit out, and they're charging, they also end up charging more. So usually it starts with, so they can keep the same price point. But then stuff goes up over time. So now you're getting less and paying the same price, and then getting less and paying more.
Yeah.
So
They
there's
get
like
greedy.
there's all sorts of tricky ways. Like, are there any things that you've noticed like that, Moth, when you've been shopping, or maybe you had something left in your home and you bought a new one and you brought it home and found out this isn't the same?
Well, I've mostly noticed between states, which probably doesn't apply the same, but like in Florida, all the groceries are like insanely expensive.
Mm.
you go up, like we went to visit my family in Ohio, and everything was like a bit more affordable, and I was like, man, this is nice. Like when I was getting
Yeah.
groceries. But I have noticed like lately it seems like our produce is way poorer quality and then way more expensive.
Mm,
Like I used to get tons of green onions because I use them on like everything.
right.
And now it's like when I get one, it's like more expensive than two used to be, and it's all wilted and gross. And I'm like,
Yes.
I don't even want to buy this. But
I
yeah,
agree
I
with you on the
definitely
green
notice it
onions.
every now and then. I love green
But
onions.
same thing though. Like we used to be able to get like three for $1, and now you're
Mhm.
paying more than $1 for one bunch,
Yep.
unless they're on sale. And I don't think I've really seen them on sale for cheaper than 79 cents lately. And they used to
Mhm.
be like 50 or 33 cents all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And anything got distracted by the onions.
I am a
Oh,
little
this is
hungry
what
right now.
this is what I wanted to ask you. So you
Mhm.
mentioned traveling across state lines.
Mhm.
And I know, like much like here between the provinces, I know that minimum wages are different in different states. Was there a minimum wage difference between your state and the state you visited, whereas maybe their stuff was cheaper because their wages are lower?
Yeah, I would say I would love to Google it right now, but I think the cost of living in Ohio is lower and probably the minimum wage too. Um, but yeah, I might Google that real quick. Hang on. You
Okay,
can
you
continue
Google
talking if
that,
you want.
and then
Yeah.
I'm going back to Static because he had something to say about what we said previously. Static, go ahead.
So just going to say that you know, the whole bargain thing, the fact that we're advocates of always using the apps, following coupons and stuff to get, the better deal. Um, we always have, each store's card. A lot of people, I'll be standing there and I'll see them pay full price for something, and I'll get $2, $3 off on something. And it's funny because you are getting that deal, but then they're putting, a random number to you and observing your spending habits, and that's where it comes from. So a lot of the places, they can observe your spending habits and observe, your whole spend path all the way through, and that's where you're getting that discount most of the time. But it is worth it. I'd say a lot of people don't like being tracked, but I'll say a lot of the time I'll go to Wendy's or something, and it's like, wow, I just saved $4, and the guy next to me is ordering full price. And I personally
Yeah.
don't mind, but I know a lot of people do.
Yeah. I don't mind with stuff like that, but I
No.
know people in my family that freak out about it, but I'm like, what else? What I mean, things can't get too much worse like with that stuff. So, I mean, knock on wood because it probably could.
I
Oh
mean,
no.
everyone's
But
tracked on their cell phone anyway. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Even if they don't realize it, probably most
hmm
people are tracked on their cell phones. But I did look it up and it is minimum wage in Florida is even lower than what I thought. It's $12 an hour.
Oh
I thought it was
wow.
15. And then minimum wage in Ohio is $10.10 an
So
hour, I
it is a
believe.
lower minimum wage there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing that some people might not know, and this is I okay, so when we go places, we tip. And I will usually tip on the bill total. I don't tip on the subtotal, the pre-tax. I will tip on the final bill. And even Static, like he went and picked us up sushi last weekend, and he tipped them, and that's just, I don't know, like you have to think that these people have a skill and they're making your delicious food.
Mhm.
But a lot of servers, and they're the ones who you end up tipping, in some states, even if the minimum wage is the 10 or the 12 or the $15, there are a number of states where the minimum wage for servers to this day is still, and I believe it's been that way since the 60s. I would have to cross reference that to say 100% for sure, but I know the amount for sure is $2.73 an hour.
Mhm.
So the expectation, and a lot of people are upset at this, but this is the way it's been for decades. It goes back to the railways, like way back then. But the expectation is that their wage is being made up in the form of tips. Now, legally, the law says that if the server with tips doesn't meet the minimum wage, then the restaurant has to pay the difference. Well, newsflash is that doesn't generally happen, and if you try to make that happen, you're probably not going to have a job. And a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
states are at will states, which means they can just tell you to piss off, and you just don't have a job. You can't fight for that job. They don't have to find a reason. They can just say, get out of here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so when people don't tip, um, in essence, their server is actually paying to serve them, and a lot of the times they also have to tip out. So they'll have to tip out if drinks come from the bar. They'll have to tip out to the bartender. If there are bus boys, if the servers aren't clearing the tables themselves, sorry, bus people, my bad. The bussers, there we go, bussers, they will come and clear the table. So the bussers have to be tipped out as well. In a lot of places, the kitchen is also tipped out. That usually includes the person in the dish pit. One of the restaurants I worked at, the sit down restaurant, they some of them put the tips on your check, so they're taxed and everything. Well, this one restaurant that I worked at, it was a minimum wage job, but every 2 weeks working full time, I got an envelope of roughly $300 in cash under the table, tip out, not taxed. So that was like glorious.
Glory.
But again, there's a number of people that don't tip, and it always ruins a server's day when that happens. um, and just, even if you don't like tipping, you don't think you should have to, that you're entitled, like, just, you know what, get takeout or stay
Mm-hmm.
home, because you shouldn't get to ruin somebody else's day just because you
Mm-hmm.
think you're above that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting away
I
from the topic, but
No,
and
that's okay.
again,
We
corporate
kind of
greed,
wander
right?
around
They're saving
butterflies.
on labor.
Mm-hmm. Um, when I went to Ohio, I actually ate at a restaurant that has a really good, like, what's the word? It's very popular because it they pay their employees like a good wage, and then they also say no tipping because um they are paying them that wage. They choose to. And so the restaurant, like the food prices are higher, but that's because they
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
are doing the right thing and, paying their
Mm-hmm.
employees fairly. So I kind of like that idea.
And and I can't even remember. I can't remember the company it is, but I remember this this guy. He had started his company, and he everybody, including himself, made the same salary, and
Mhm.
people were laughing at him and
Oh, I
saying, "Oh,
remember that.
yeah, yeah." And then they came back like years later to check in with him, and it's still going strong. They're still all making the
Nice.
same money, and the productivity and the contentment and the happiness of the employees is like through the roof. Like, he's got loyal, die-hard employees
Oh, I
that will
bet.
always be there because he gives a shit, and he sees the issue, which is there for everyone, and he brings himself down to the level of the people. Like, I'm not better
Mhm.
than you, I don't deserve more than you, we're in this together, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
that is just really, something that should be fostered and embraced, by more companies. But I don't I mean, we're so behind in so many things. Like, just in 2024, a lot of the shit that's going on, you would hope would have ended a long time ago. So
Oh, yeah.
it's like we take 1.5 steps forward and 1 step back. That's what it
You're
feels
like
like.
10
The
steps back.
Yeah, the progress is not even inching along.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say, which I don't know if you have anything else to add before. Remember we did that butterfly garden thing. I didn't know if anyone did the
Yes. Yeah, we've
act
got
of
6 minutes
kindness.
left, so check in with the people.
Yeah. Who all was here last time we had the podcast? No, Klima was, and
I know
Iron Wolf
Iron was.
was.
I think
I'm
John
not
was.
sure. Maybe Big John. Vansky, I don't think you were,
I don't think
but you
Fancy
can
was.
still talk if you have something. to say.
Yes,
No, no, no.
she does kindness all the time. I
Nope,
feel,
nope,
anyway.
nope. Did anyone happen to remember to do like a act of kindness to create some butterflies? It's okay if you didn't, but if you did, please share. Anyone?
No. Well, what about you, Moth? Did you?
I actually did remember, surprisingly, because my memory is terrible. So one thing I did, I know there was two things, and I'm blanking on the other thing, but I remember there was a man in a wheelchair. He was an older man, and he was looking at the coffee creamer. He was looking for a long time, and I was like, maybe he cannot like reach what he needs to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him if he needed any help, and he said yes, and he was wanting to get, and he had been watching the employees, but they were like really busy. He was wanting to get this sugar-free vanilla creamer that was all the way at the back. So like I got it for him, and he was really nice and said thank you and stuff. So
Aw.
that was nice. That was a good interaction. Um, and then I want to say there was something else, but I don't really remember. So unfortunately, my memory has failed me there, but I did remember one of them. So, Kitty, did you happen to remember maybe?
Yeah, I try to one sec, I just need to have a sip of my drink.
Oh, you're okay.
Sorry, I haven't hydrated enough. I haven't been up long enough.
Oh yeah.
I just try to compliment people like on a daily basis, the people that I'm dealing with in customer service.
Mhm.
And just I see how it like brightens
Static
their
Thread
day or makes
decided
them
to
light
join
up,
us
that
in
kind
the
of thing.
simulation.
So if somebody's getting takeout or whatever, and let's say I'm handing them their order, and I see that they've got their nails done and they look really nice, I'll compliment their nails, and you kind of see
Mhm.
people just kind of perk up and smile and just happy
Yeah.
that they got the compliment. And you have to think too, you're spending money on those nails, so you obviously
Mhm.
you like them, they make you feel good about
Yeah.
yourself, you want people to notice them.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't I've done this with some customers too. Especially the older ladies, I find love it. But when they get their food and they look and they're like, "Oh, this looks delicious," or "This looks amazing," or "This looks so good," and I'll be like, "Oh, well, not as good as you," and they always laugh and love it. So
Yeah, I love
I like
stuff like
doing
that.
stuff like
That's
View
that
is
just to
wanted
kind of
in
Yeah.
several other
uplift people.
spaces. Take
Mhm.
cover and shoot.
Because stuff like that surprises them too, and like I think
Mhm.
makes them laugh, and that just kind of like makes them have a better day.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
it's
we've
good
got
stuff.
2 minutes left. Did we want to maybe see if there was any topic ideas?
Sure. Does anyone have any suggestions for topics for future discussions on the Butterfly Podcast?
If not, we'll just get really high and figure it out. It's fine.
Yes. Yes. High five. Low five.
Yes. Did you
A
have
weed
a
topic would be
comment?
interesting. Weed.
Static, did you say something or
It's just like inflation.
inflation? Oh, God.
Yeah, high from inflation. Inflation.
Well, phase read starts in a minute. Did you want to close us out?
Sure. Thanks for everyone for coming today. Hopefully you liked the topic and everything we talked about. Iron Wolf, did you have something to say?
No, thank you very much.
Oh, you're
for
just hopping
today.
around. That's okay.
Thank
Just
you.
jumping for us.
No,
Thank
just
you,
jumping.
Static.
Yay, thank
We
you.
appreciate your
Jump off.
input.
Yeah, and we appreciated everyone coming here, and we'll
Yes.
look forward to seeing you next week.
was
We'll try to
amazing,
figure
guys.
out the topic. Maybe we could even
Yes.
put a couple in chat and like have a poll or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be
And
cool.
Shoseki, thank you for filming
Yes,
for us.
thank you.
Thank you, Soseki.
Back in your corner.
Back in your
Doing
corner.
excellent.
He's not even in a corner. Cheater.
It's a
Jeez.
metaphorical corner. Corner of the
They're playing
mind.
foosball.
And thank you, everyone. And remember, the things you do in the world have ripple effects.
Oh yes.
And one last thing. The 24th, Wednesday, is National Self-Care Day. So do something for yourselves. do something
Yeah.
to care for yourself.
All right.
Do it. Go to
Oh,
the
yeah.
spa.
I'm going to
Smoke a
have
fat
drink
blunt.
with you on a boat.
Thank you, everyone.